AutoLine After Hours is brought to you by...
Thank you, Alex Partners, for sponsoring the show. Want to welcome all of you for joining us here on Autoline After Hours. Gary's here.
John, how are you?
I'm doing good.
This is the last official show of the summer with Labor Day coming up. I mean, it's just...
Well, look, not official, because remember, summer doesn't end until the equinox.
We're not talking planets here, John. We're talking Labor Day. So.
I don't want to lose the summer. I'm just trying to drag it out as much as I can. We got Jeff Gilbert here. Thanks for being here, Jeff.
No problem. I didn't bring anything pumpkin spice, so I guess we are still summer.
All right, we're good. Right. Next time you're in, you'll bring it.
And then we've got to let everybody know our special guest today is Ramiro Gutierrez. He's the president of ZF North America. Some people say ZF. I guess you don't care, right?
I don't care. I mean, ZF, CF, the important thing is to send the message across both companies. Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be with you today.
Yeah. Ramiro, we got so much that we want to get into with you right now, but I'll just kick off the discussion by saying, you know, probably in the audience, a lot of people know ZF for its transmissions, but you guys are making a big push into chassis right now. Why and what are you doing? And, you know, why are you pushing into chassis?
Well, first of all, I mean, the CF or ZF bought TRW 10 years ago. TRW was a big chassis supplier, and this is from where the chassis thing is coming. Then why is now a renewed effort on the chassis area is because of the software-defined vehicles. The chassis components, call it braking, steering, suspension, are becoming a by-wire technology, therefore it's becoming an intelligent component rather than being just a mechanical or linkage element into the car. And that provides a complete different set of functionality that is exploding, and the end customer is going to benefit out of it.
I would say one thing too is EVs, E-REVs don't need transmissions. When you're in chassis, it doesn't matter what the powertrain is.
You're right on that. I mean, so far every car needs braking, steering, suspension. But, you know, even on that area, you know, we have development ongoing on how to stop a vehicle with an electrical motor. If you have an electrical or a battery-operated vehicle with an electrical motor, you can actually get the motor to slow down the car to a point that the use of the braking components is going to become a minimum element into that dynamic. So there is a lot of room into that technology to evolve over time.
Now, if we'd have had this conversation a year ago, we'd be talking about how the world is marching toward electric vehicles. Things have changed a lot in the past year, particularly in the United States, but also to a lesser degree in some other countries. How does that affect your planning for chassis, for other things like that? Because, you know, you might have thought EVs would penetrate X% of the market in the next 10 years. Now maybe you're projecting Y% of the market.
Correct. And the Y is way lower than the X.
Yes.
That's the problem. And especially the timeline into that happening has been extremely short. So we have deployed a lot of capital into electrical vehicles. And we are now at the time where a lot of those programs should be hitting the start of production. And I tell you what, we have beautiful lines installed, and the lines are not running. And they are not running because volumes are not there. Why aren't volumes there? Because on the one side, regulation has been brought down. We roll back regulation, and then the OEMs are not basically pushing those cars into the market, and customers are not buying them. So the problem is that all that capital has been deployed, all that engineering effort has been made, and we have all that debt out there, right, that we are paying at a very high interest rate as per the Fed, holding on this very expensive money out there, and that is a struggle for the industry. So we have a big problem with that. And as I said, all these things has happened very late into that process. If we would have seen this happening 2 years ago, we may have slowed down the deployment of that capital. We may have slowed down the engineering effort, the validation effort for those solutions. But the reality is that everybody was marching full speed to hit the SOPs that were scheduled, and those are not happening.
So I suppose the good news, though, is that you guys still have those wonderful 8 and 9-speed transmissions that you're manufacturing. I mean, so it seems that what you may lose on one side, you're going to be gaining on the other side as they become more popular and as you guys make improvements there. Now, one of the things that I think is very interesting about your company is that you're talking about the the chassis 2.0 and making it a smarter thing. Is that the company that's all the rage right now out there is NVIDIA, and you guys were actually working with NVIDIA years ago before anybody even knew about that stuff. So I mean, your level of software intelligence is probably a cut above many of your competitors. Can you talk to us about that?
So, well, you're right. I mean, we work with NVIDIA together in developing controllers for ADAS, for active driving systems, and we deployed or we launched in the market those units. And in terms of our software capabilities, precisely connected to this new chassis by-wire technology, what we have developed is a platform that we call Cubics that basically coordinate all the longitudinal, lateral, and vertical movement of the car. And with Cubics, you can basically, Cubics is software and it's agnostic. So we can use our own components, our own hardware, or we can use somebody else's hardware, but it makes extremely easy. Well, nothing is easy in this life, but easier, let's put it this way, or we can shorten the development time to validate new solutions in terms of vehicle dynamics. And also by the ability of managing through software the vertical, the longitudinal, and the lateral movement of a car, you can develop a lot of new functionality that we cannot even imagine. I mean, you can go to now these software engineers that may not have any good idea what a car is, and then tell them, here you have this tool, go play with it, and develop functionality for the end customer that nobody has predicted or imagined so far.
Ramiro, you're right about all this investment that's gone into EVs. It's kind of stranded investment right now.
Right.
I'd like to get your thoughts on extended range EVs, because it seems to me they're perfect for the American market, especially if you've got a full-size pickup or a full-size SUV. You can plug it in at night and pretty much drive on electricity. If you want to take a long distance, especially if you're towing a heavy load or carrying a heavy load, you can stop at any gasoline station. And is it possible that if E-REVs catch on, that you would be able to use some of those stranded EV assets, whether it's assembling battery packs, electric motors, inverters, or the like? What's your thought on E-REVs?
So I think they are a great solution, especially when you have developed an electrical vehicle platform, and then you have a situation where your customers have range anxiety or they don't like the range. Let's say you have a customer that is going to the market to buy a car and they are looking for a 400-mile range, and what they find in the affordability price is a 200-mile range, and then a generator, which is a range extender, can give them that extra mileage and can give also the peace of mind that they can keep going on gas if they run out of a charger or cannot find a charger. So I think it's an excellent product. To your point, a range extender is basically having an electrical motor and is having an inverter. So you can actually reuse some of that technology. Then in some of the cases, we have deployed very automatic lines to produce electrical vehicles, and modifying those lines is also very expensive because, for example, we have a big factory in South Carolina. We've been going full automation on those lines. So it's possible. Is cheap, probably not that cheap, but certainly cheaper than producing a complete new line.
Got it.
But as you're talking about this, we're talking about expense. We're talking, of course, E-REV. You've got the gasoline generator as well as the electric battery. And earlier, before we went on the air, we were talking about affordability being a big issue for customers. So how does this work from the supplier level to make a vehicle more affordable for customers? Because obviously, somebody who's cut off on the entry level isn't going to be able to afford an E-REV. But we're seeing so many people who are cut off at the entry level. How do we balance that?
That's a very good question. Actually, we're learning things out of our customers in China. They were the first ones, and we are in production in there with range extenders. And they are they have been the first ones figuring out where the sweet spot is in saving money in the battery of the vehicle and spending some of that money into the range extender, and have a combination of the two that hits the sweet spot in terms of affordability. So the range extender can be used. You have the electrical vehicle with a big battery pack, and then you on top of that you put the range extender. Or you can actually reduce this big battery pack that is quite expensive, and then get a bigger generator, and the combination of the two gives you the range that you still want. Certainly the pure electrical range, well, the car is going to be moving electrically all the time, but the range that comes from the plug-in, the loading of the battery, the charging of the battery is going to be lower versus the range that you get out of the generator. But the combination of the cost, I mean, at the end of the day, our customers in China are fitting one 3-cylinder engine, 1.5 liters, that they run at a very constant RPM, providing a super low consumption. And that combined with a small battery pack gives their customers 700 miles of range. And that is the solution for them, because, again, they don't need to spend the big battery pack cost. They get a very cheap 3-cylinder, 1.5 liter engine in there that they run at a very constant rate, optimal RPMs, and the consumption is just extremely low, and they get the perfect combination.
So what is the input that you have into those vehicles?
What do you mean with the input?
What are you selling the Chinese OEMs that they're utilizing?
The range extender. So we actually develop a solution where we can put in one pack what you would call the generator itself with the drive unit. So one assembly has the two functionalities, and you can put that directly on the axle, provide the drive unit movement, and at the same time generate the electricity to load the battery that is sitting on the vehicle.
So it's a module that is integrated.
Yes.
Ramiro, have you had a chance to drive in or ride in any of these E-REVs?
Yeah.
I'm just curious because I have not, and I'm wondering, does the engine come on at odd times? Is it at a high RPM? Is it, noisy to you? What's the experience with an E-REV?
So to be clear, the car is going to be driven electrically. Mm-hmm. So you still enjoy all these noise-free environment. Then there's going to be these little zzz in the background, which is going to be these small 1 liter or 1.5 liter engine that is going to be running at very low RPMs, 2,000 RPMs, 3,000 RPMs. That is going to be there in the background, but it's a very silent generator. It's not a noisy one. Mm-hmm. So I think in terms of the experience, you're still going to experience the electrical driving, with all that torque and massive feedback on how powerful the vehicle is. And you will not get a lot of the disturbance of the noise or the MBH issues that you may think are there. Also, there is not going to be any transition between the one engine and the battery pack, because, again, the vehicle is going to be driven electrically 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm. So as you're having these smaller engines, which would mean less cost, you guys have an integrated system that I'm sure is very competitive. To Jeff's point about affordability, I mean, does this lend itself to making more affordable electrified vehicles that would find use here?
I think it's a combination of convenience and cost, right? I mean, if you can get a very cheap battery pack and you can run out of that battery pack 400 miles, then you don't need to worry about anything else. But the reality is not there today. So then what is your solution? You still need a customer that comes into the dealership still want the 400 miles. What is the cheapest way to give that guy the 400 miles still using an electrical drivetrain? And the solution is the range extender. You can go the opposite way and go into a hybrid. You have a traditional powertrain system, and then you get a hybrid, right? You put the electric machine next to the engine to combine with the main powertrain, which is still combustion. So you have the two solutions. But if you are, let's say, going back to the discussion before, you are in a business where you have already put all your engineering in developing a platform of vehicles that are electric, your way to go is probably the range extender, because you can downsize on your battery pack, you put the generator, your customers are going to be happy, their experience is exactly the same. And just to be clear, in this market that we are in, convenience is the king, because people, for the most part, they don't like to plug in. You give a guy something that still behaves like the same car that they have forever, so they put gas when they need to. They put in gas on a generator, but they don't care. I mean, at the end of the day, the car is moving, they have the convenience of the generator, and they may not plug in the car at any time or for a month. But yeah, so it's just pure convenience. But you need to hit the price point, right?
Right.
And the way in China they've been hitting the price point is reducing those battery packs, getting the generator, and the combination of the two, giving the customer the price point and the range they wanted to get.
So would it be more cost effective for an E-REV or a hybrid?
So this is two different solutions.
Right.
My view, if you have already developed an electrical platform, you are an OEM, you have a platform of vehicles that you have a skateboard, right, with different top hats or different bodies, and that is already developed, the way to go, I think, is with a range extender. If you haven't done that, maybe with the new regulation, you stay with the combustion engine and then you go the hybrid solution. Then you plug a module or a new transmission, a new hybrid transmission into your existing combustion engine, and then you get a better fuel economy. But again, what the market is telling us is that hybrids are growing, the market share of hybrids are growing. The plug-in hybrid market share is not taking off. That is telling us.
Not in this country.
Not in this country. In Europe, it is.
Europe, it's doing very well.
Correct.
Right.
But in this country, people don't like to plug in. And that is the convenience factor into this. That's why hybrids.
There's also another issue in this country, in that the government is no longer pushing people toward electric vehicles. So do you run up with an issue with an E-REV where somebody just goes, well, hey, I don't need this. I can still buy my good old-fashioned internal combustion because, California is no longer pushing me to buy an electric vehicle. The government's no longer giving me a rebate to buy an electric vehicle. So why should I even worry about an E-REV? I'll go back to my, what I'm used to.
I don't think, for the most part, we are petrol heads. But the average customer is not a petrol head. They move by convenience. I go into a dealership, I need a new car, and then I go and look at the fuel economy. I mean, basically, if I can behave like I've been behaving all my life, putting gas when I need gas, then the pure convenience kicks in. Oh, is the price point right? Yes. Is the range right? Yes. I like the car? Yes. Let's go. But I don't think the average customer have a lot of thinking about whether it's a hybrid, whether it's a range extender, or what it is. They check range, yes. Price, yes. I like it, yes. Let's go. So when you force them into plug it in, this is when the problems start to happen, because they don't like to do that. And the market is telling us they don't like to do that.
Well, it's interesting if you think about it that, when you bought your first several cars, did you even think about range? I mean, it was a non-issue, right? It was maybe miles per gallon, but it's only with electric vehicles.
My first car, I thought of, can I start it this morning? But that's a whole other issue.
Yeah. So range is this new metric that is if you do the math on how far you can go in a F-150, like it's amazing, 400 miles, right? But nobody ever says, oh, I'm going to buy that F-150 because I can go 400 miles on it, right? It's.
Well, I think is how easy you can get range. On an electrical vehicle, getting range is not as easy, or it takes longer than in a combustion engine vehicle, right? And is that situation more than the overall range. But I mean, if the electrical vehicle will give you the equivalent in range, then probably you're going to be fine, but it's not the case.
Well, I think the psychology of a consumer when it comes to range is what's going to happen when I run out of range. They don't worry about it as much with a gasoline car because they know there's, a gas station every couple of miles.
Correct.
They worry about it more with an EV because they don't know if there's a charging station. They don't know if it's going to work. They don't know if it's going to have to wait. So that's what the difference is.
But in my experience, talking to people who are EV owners and have owned them for years, they don't have range anxiety. They've already figured this all out. They're plugging in at home. You know, just like you every night or, you know, before you go to bed, you plug in your cell phone. They're doing the same thing.
Yep.
They're plugging in their car. They have zero range anxiety. Even the ones who travel, especially those who own Teslas, they'll go all over the place. They don't have any worry about it. It's mainly the people who don't have EVs, have never experienced an EV, haven't lived with an EV. They're the ones with the range anxiety. So, you know, part of it is just biting the bullet and jumping into the ecosystem of electric cars and seeing how it does. But to your point, Ramiro, people aren't going to do that. They know what works and they're going to stick with it.
I agree 100% with your logic, but the market is telling us something different. And you know, the customer talks, and when they talk, you want to be on, and you want to give them what they want.
Customer. Yeah. That's rule number one. So I got another topic I'd like to ask you about. Ford Motor Company showed this very intriguing assembly process that they're going to use in a couple of years, where they break a vehicle into 3 modules. They assemble the modules separately, front, center, rear, put that together. What are your thoughts on this? And, you know, especially as you're going into chassis controls, does a new assembly process affect what you're doing?
I think first it's a very clever idea. Then I think modular assembly is nothing new. It has been out there for a while. I think this solution seems to be innovative in the way they want to do it, but it makes absolute sense. When it comes to our components, I mean, naturally we are decoupling the mechanical, so the hardware from the software. And in cases like, for example, the steering system, now you don't have a steering column that goes through the firewall from the occupant into the engine bay, right? So that is a big advantage in terms of assembly. It's even an advantage when you have a left-hand driving versus a right-hand driving. Now you don't worry anymore about where the pedals go, how I get the steering column through the thing. It's even a safety element. You now don't have a steering column that would collapse towards the occupant in a crash. So there are fundamental advantages. Same on braking. Now you don't have, you have brake-by-wire now. You don't have a hydraulic fluid that is highly corrosive into the environment. Even in the customer plants, the OEM plants, they now don't need environmental protection to manage these kind of fluids into the plant. We have new customers that are going with those solutions, that are setting up new plants, and they are super happy having a brake-by-wire system, because they don't need to worry about how to deal with these environmental constraints and the setup in the plant. So there are fundamental advantages in the by-wire technology, and then for the end customer as well. I mean, as we mentioned before, the extra functionality that customers may get out of it.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned steering. Now, you guys are also going to the rear steering as a possibility for more.
Correct. So we are in production with rear steering. It's interesting because rear steering, I think, is a fantastic product, but so far the market, maybe because of being integrated in a package that is bigger, didn't understand the advantages of the technology. The technology is not only great for slow speed maneuvers when you're parking, because obviously your turning ratio is way smaller. It's especially incredible during the Dream Cruise a couple of weekends ago, right? We put a car out there and we open it up to people to go test it. You would be amazed how people like it. I mean, we put it in a big full-size truck, and they were amazed how easy it was to maneuver in a parking lot. But it has fundamental advantages as well in terms of safety. I am driving a lot up north, and I can tell you that the number of incidents that I see on the road with people trailering, well, with rear steering trailering, is way safer. This sway movement that you have on the trailer when you have a high-speed maneuver is going away with rear steering. Then you have advantages in tire wear. Tire wear is way lower. You even have advantages in motion sickness. The rear passengers on a rear steering equipped vehicle, they don't get motion sickness. So again, I think it's one of those products that are great, but some ways on how we are failing to show the people how good of a product it is.
No, I totally agree with that. I'd add one more feature of rear steer in a truck or an SUV. If you're backing up with a trailer,
correct,
it's way easier. You don't have to turn the steering wheel opposite to the way that you want to turn. Right. So intuitively, it's just a lot easier. But yeah, I mean, General Motors was the one that pioneered rear steering on pickup trucks. This goes back, I don't know, 25 years ago or something. But it was a very expensive option because they packaged it in a certain trim level. The people who got it absolutely loved it, but there were very few of them and it was dropped. How do you get people to understand it? Because I agree. I think it's a fantastic technology in cars.
So General Motors have rear steering from us on the Hummer and the Silverado EV, but for some reason they are not putting that option into the mainstream gas-powered Silverados, and that is something that we need to convince them to do. Recently, I was talking with a GM executive, and she was telling me she was dropping her Hummer that she had for 6 months, and she was telling me, without me asking, the feature that I loved the most in the Hummer was my ability to park that monster anywhere I wanted. She said, I even went to Detroit Metro and I parked the Hummer inside the parking lot. I couldn't get out of it, but I've been able to put it inside the parking lot, and it was super easy with the rear steering system. So I think we need to make an effort to, I actually directed my team to get into customer clinics, to get the end customer to understand the system, to understand the benefits, and try to drive more market penetration through that. Because for some reason, the OEMs don't feel comfortable in pushing it harder.
Well, this is an industry that's got a long memory, and they remember GM tried it and it didn't work.
Right.
And we need to break that paradigm because it's a terrific technology.
How are OEMs doing in terms of wanting to deploy steer-by-wire? Because you've been demonstrating that for a while. It's very impressive, but we don't see it rolling out that fast on production vehicles. Are we going to see a fast rollout in the coming years?
Yeah, we have been first to market in North America. We have been first to market in Asia. We are launching in the next 6 months another 2 programs. This is rolling out fast. Like everything, initially you see a cost that is a little bit higher, but as well, the functionality that you can get out of it, we are still scratching the surface. As I said before, as soon as you get into the software domain-defined vehicle, and you start to explore different ways of using those actuators through software, you can develop a lot of new functionality out of it that customers are going to see value. Let's go into an example here. Let's say you drive up north, right? And then you have a cottage somewhere in Upper Michigan, and you drive on 75 and you want your steering to be highway, all right? No performance, just stable, just going. Then you get out of the highway in Grayling, and then you go into the normal road, and then you want your steering to be more direct because there is some turns and maybe you pass in another car and so forth. And how good is that you don't need to do anything? Your car detects that you get out of 75, then automatically your steering tunes into that direction. And then when you get passing Traverse City, you get into a gravel road, and then the vehicle automatically changes your steering into less direct because you are on a gravel road, and all that happens without you doing anything. So, not to mention that you go into the M1 concourse one day and you want to go go racing, and then you can on purpose go say, I want a super direct steering. And then you basically have a complete different feeling of a car in each of those cases.
So I'm assuming that the drive to 75, get off at Grayling on to 72 is sensor-based? How does the steering system
know? Well, your GPS is going to know that.
Okay.
Then the problem is that before, your GPS cannot get action into your steering column and move your steering wheel from one
That's a great point. With a software-defined vehicle,
exactly,
no problem.
Exactly.
So real quick, because we're getting down towards the end here. Same with brake-by-wire. A lot's been talked about it. That's going to be coming too.
Yeah.
I know it's coming, but do you see a lot of it coming soon?
Yeah, we have secured an order with an American OEM, with a Detroit OEM, for a very large vehicle that is hitting very large volumes, and this is going to go. It's going to go 100% penetration. So yeah, it's going to happen.
Now, is this pure by-wire, or is it a combination electric and hydraulic?
This particular full-size vehicle is going to have a hybrid system where they're going to have in one axle by-wire and in the other axle a traditional system. That brings some advantages for the system, the way they want it. But yeah, it's going to be 100% on at least on one of the axles.
Fantastic. Because I know for a fact assembly plants don't like dealing with all that brake fluid. Anytime you change the pads or anything, you have to bleed the brakes, and all that's going to go away.
Right. I mean, we have a customer that is 100% electric on the West Coast, and they are developing a new factory. And I can tell you how happy they are in going into that technology, because they don't need to worry about that fluid.
Good. Look, we're going to have to wrap this up, but Ramiro, it's been terrific having you on the show. We're going to have you back and talk.
A couple of questions from the audience.
Okay, let's go. Audience questions. Yeah.
Rear wheel drive, please, asks, how well do electric brakes work when the alternator dies and the battery is of marginal help?
Okay, so to repeat the question for those, what happens with
Electric brakes when
electric brakes, brake by wire, when the alternator isn't working well or the battery charge is very low?
Well, you still have a fallback solution with, you have electric park brake today. It's still an electrical motor that is in there, so there are redundancies built into the system for those cases.
Right, and I'm sure the same goes with any kind of steering, by-wire steering. There's a redundant system for that as well.
That is correct.
Okay, Sean, other question?
just one more. Robert Foster just writes active suspension ? So I don't know if that means, does your software tech that you have will allow active suspension, or whether or not you're actively working on active suspension?
Yeah, so the question again, to repeat it, what about active suspension?
I think active suspension is a great product. We have them in production in multiple customers. A big one, for example, is Porsche. And the things that active suspension can do for you. Some people associate active suspension to sport driving. You can get sport driving out of active suspension, but you can get a heck of a comfort out of it. And there are some interesting videos on YouTube that you can see this situation where a car is going through an even pavement, and it's uneven on the left and on the right, and the car just basically floats over that like no effort. And when you drive it, you love it.
Real good. We out of viewer questions? Okay, we are. Ramiro, thanks so much for coming on the
Absolutely.
show. Really
Thank
good.
you for having me.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick commercial break right now. We're going to come back and talk about the news of the week.
We act, we grow, we transform, we protect, we rescue. In moments that define the future, we are the partner you can trust. Alex Partners, when it really matters.
All right, we're back. And boy, there's some good stuff to get into here, Gary. I'm sure you got topics.
I wanted to.
You got topics?
And we're going to pummel Jeff with questions.
Well, no, I was, Jeff, you're mentioning the affordability thing, and so today I noticed in Automotive News where Cloud Theory has their average marketed price for a vehicle, and today it's $49,678. How can people deal with prices like that?
Well, that is the question that we've all been asking. I mean, of course, that's the average. So that means there are ones that are below that. But the biggest problem isn't so much the average. The biggest problem is some of those below it are starting to disappear. Especially when, a lot of them are not made in the United States, don't have a lot of U.S. content. So there's going to be a lot of pressure from that end with tariffs going forward. So, as we have seen, you guys have been covering this longer than me, but throughout my career, we've always been talking about a certain number of people are cut out of the new car market. Every year, it's more and more and more. So that continues to happen.
Look, this is why car sales have gone nowhere for a decade. We sold more cars in this country a decade ago than we do now. And I think the major culprit is just that, what you're talking about, Jeff. It's people can't afford these new ones. I mean, there's at least 16 million people who will come into the market this year, maybe a little less than that, who can afford it, but none of them are happy about prices. Everyone's complaining about the price of cars.
But the industry also got a little euphoric about the high end of the market a few years back with the chip crisis, when people were paying anything to get every last thing that they wanted. And, I had a conversation with a certain exec at a certain brand that has gotten blamed for having vehicles that weren't affordable. And he said, it was Jeep. And you beat it out of me.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, I just drove a, $80,000-$90,000 Grand Cherokee. So people are begging for those. People are wanting those. Well, that was the industry attitude a couple of years ago. Then things changed, and now people are begging for mid-size models and things of that nature. So I think there was a little bit of industry euphoria that pushed these fully loaded vehicles, because you know as well as I do, that's where you make a lot of the money, is on the extras.
So is it your sense, as you're talking to people in the industry, that they are willing to adapt their product plans in order to address this lower end of the market, or are they just basically going, you know what, it is going to be what it's going to be?
Let's look at just look at the product lineup for GM and Ford over the past 2 or 3 decades. So much has disappeared at the low end, and we keep adding more onto F-150s, F-250s, Silverados, heavy duties, etc. So, small cars mean small profits, as you've often heard. So, I don't see a huge push. Remember, Bob Lutz was always quotable. Remember the Tata Nano came out, and somebody asked him, is anybody going to make a $2,500 car? And his answer was, we already have them. They're called used cars. So in many cases, that's the auto industry's answer to that, because they're not going to make a ton of money off of these smaller vehicles.
Yeah, that's right. Gary, another news item that broke this week is European automakers and suppliers sent a letter to the EU saying enough of these CO2 regulations already. There's no way that we're going to meet them. We've spent 250 billion euros developing electric cars. We've launched hundreds of models. The market share is stuck at 15%. We're supposed to be at 55% by 2030, 100% by 2035. Enough already. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think that when I was a little kid, I wrote a letter to Napoleon Solo and said, would you send me a man from Uncle badge? Never happened. I think what's going to go on here is because of the roiling of the international auto industry right now, that the EU may step back and say, hey, we'll give you an extension on this. But that said, if they spent that money, are they going to basically want to walk away from it, or they're going to say, okay, we want to be able to get some advantage out of that? So maybe it's not 2035, but maybe it's 2038. I don't see it
or
going
2045 or something.
I don't see, but that becomes science fiction at that point.
Right. No, I think they're going to get relief, because number one, jobs are going to start going away. It's already started. Then you're going to have the unions in Europe screaming that something's got to be done about it. The thing that I keep pointing out is the auto industry is the only industry or industry sector, economy sector, that's facing all these massive CO2 rules and massive fines. Nobody else in the economy faces that.
It's because everybody can see a tailpipe.
Well, I know they can, but in this country, I'm going by EPA data. CO2 emissions from cars, greenhouse gases from cars, because we got to look at the big picture. It's more than CO2. Account for 16% of total emissions. So we're throwing all of our regulatory effort into a rather small piece of what's going on out there.
Well, of course, because we follow the auto industry, we see what they're doing on the auto industry. I think if we were following the energy industry or something like that, they would say, they're putting a lot on our back as well. So
look, I've looked this up. There's nothing on trains. There's nothing on planes. There's nothing on ships. There's nothing on agricultural equipment. There's nothing on motorcycles. There's nothing on residential. There's nothing on business. There isn't anything out there. There's talk of collecting data and guidelines and future goals. There are zero regulations, zero fines, except on the automotive industry.
And some of those are backing off.
And in this country, but that's what I'm asking. Is this going to happen with the European industry?
I think it has to. If people will not buy the vehicles, what are you going to do? And I was in Europe on vacation not that long ago, and of course it's dangerous to judge things based on just what I see on roads. But you hear a lot about Europe leading the way with electric vehicles. Honestly, as I made it a point to look at roads in France, England, Switzerland, and Italy, and it didn't really seem there were a ton of electric vehicles out there. Honestly, I felt like I saw more EVs on the road here in Detroit, which is not a big EV market, than I saw on the roads of European cities like London and Paris, because you still have the ton of the small cars, ton of small SUVs, that things of that nature, but I didn't see the wide variety. I saw a couple of Volkswagens here and there, a few Teslas, because they're now hitting in that market, but not quite the wide variety.
But as percentage of sales, I mean, the EU is vastly ahead
Right,
of
but
the
that's
United
supposed
States.
to be leading the way. And I think countries like Norway that heavily incentivize EVs kind of skew the percentage. I think if you're looking in Italy or France and places like that, it's probably not a whole lot different than the US.
Yeah.
So it's that issue, we've been sort of talking about of whether there'll be homologation of safety standards between cars
Between the U.S. and the EU.
in EU.
Yeah. Will Europe accept U.S. Certified cars? Will the U.S. accept European certified cars? Quite honestly, our emission standards and their emission standards are pretty close. Our safety standards are extremely close. To me, it would be an easy thing to just say for the United States, look, if the Euro, you meet Euro NCAP, you meet Euro emissions, come on in. Conversely, Europe could say, hey, look, if the EPA certified emissions and NHTSA certified the safety, come on in, you're good to go.
And pay a tariff.
And pay a tariff, that's right. But to me, it would be pretty easy to do. It would obviously benefit the European manufacturers more because they ship vastly more vehicles to the U.S. than the U.S. ships to Europe. But
or we should say we buy more European vehicles than Europeans buy U.S. vehicles. So it's not like they're like shipping them over and saying, hey, buy these things.
Correct.
It's
Correct.
like, it's demand, which somehow gets lost in all of this economic discussion.
Yeah, but Cadillac's got a big push into Europe right now. It's very small numbers, but something like that would help them a lot. It would probably help companies like Rivian and Lucid as well, on the U.S. side. But yeah, you're right. For the legacy automakers, look, Europe's not going to go out and buy big American pickups and SUVs, not in any big numbers.
So Ford had another big recall.
Which one, today or yesterday?
Yeah,
I mean,
I believe I haven't counted these.
Is this
myself.
the bolts on the back axle?
No, this is
the brakes,
leaky brake fluid lines, and this is, according to Automotive News, number 105 for the year.
That is staggering.
And according to them, Stellantis is second with like 23.
Man.
So I've got that slightly different as General Motors with 17.
Oh, General Motors
and
is 17.
That Ford is 104.
Okay.
Okay, so here's my question to you guys. Okay, so you talked about Ford's new production system, and Ford announced today that they're opening new charging stations at dealerships, and what a wonderful company it is. Can people really feel comfortable about buying Fords when they're having this many recalls?
A lot of people are going to be very askance at thinking about buying a Ford. My question would be, what do you know what the cause of the brake fluid leakage is?
It was a hose that
a hose would rupture or something. So
and those were 2013 to 18 models, something like that.
Yeah,
they were
but
older.
so-
All right, so they have one. It was announced yesterday. 355,000 trucks in the U.S.
That
do
was
an
the
issue with the
instrument panel.
instrument panel display. Now they can fix if it's an OTA, but again, this is and these are 2025, 2026 models.
Yeah, so see, this is not good. They just had a big
And-
recall on a bolt and a rear axle.
So it's a rear axle thing, and these are F-150 pickups, 2023, 2024, and 2025. So it's not like
it's
ancient history.
But what I'd like to do is trace down what's the root cause here. I mean, when a bolt fails, was the bolt not put in? Was the bolt not torqued right? Did engineering go through all their validation? Give their blessing to these sets of bolts, and then maybe purchasing went and found a cheaper bolt that had not been what's going on? Because and then when you say leaky brakes or a hose blows out, same thing. Did purchasing buy something cheap? Was it twisted in a way when it was installed at the assembly plant? Was it under-engineered to begin? What's the root cause? And I would love to get to the bottom of
Right,
this
but
stuff.
you think about it, I mean, the guys who work at Ford are no different than the guys that are working at Stellantis or the guys who are working at General Motors.
But it's not a people thing. It's a process and procedure thing. Whether it's engineering procedures, whether it's purchasing procedures, whether it's manufacturing ones, you got to follow the rules. You got to make sure that things are getting done and double check it. And it sounds like that's not happening.
So I thought they had the Ford production system.
I thought they had that too. I mean, if you listen to their last conference call, Jim Farley was saying, oh, this has been fixed on the newer vehicles. It's just the older vehicles. But what did they take as a charge against earnings in the last quarter? Was it like $500,000 or $500 million?
Well, last year, I can tell you,
I'm just talking last quarter.
Last quarter. It must have been more than that because last year they spent nearly $6 billion.
I think it was
on
$500
warranty
million
and
on
recall.
The warranty, in the last quarter. So, I mean, this is an issue. I mean, we'll just have to see whether they have properly dealt with it. But I'm sure they're asking the same questions in-house that you're asking, because this is money for them and reputation.
That's right. Exactly right.
I just wonder about the reputation part. I mean,
well, come on. You remember the old joke when we were kids about fix or repair daily. So, people have issues like that. I actually did an interview with somebody on another radio station where they brought up that old abbreviation. So, you got to assume that they are working on it. They're trying to do the best they can. Will they fix it? I don't know. I can't tell you.
Well, look, it's not getting better by just this recall count. And that tells me there's no end in sight. I mean, I think they're seeing some things in their data because they've got access to stuff that we don't. But as far as what's ending up in the customer's hands, we're not at the end of this, not even close.
All right, John. So 2025, year of autonomy.
That's it, baby.
Okay, so
we're here.
Here's our entry for today's year in autonomy. So Stellantis decided that it's going to pull the plug on its level 3 hands-free and eyes-off driving system that it has long been developing. This would be integrated in other EV technologies like Stella Brain and Stella Smart Cockpit. So they've put all this money into this, and they're like, this ain't working out. So,
look, you got a new CEO, Antonio Filosa, comes in, knows that the place is a total mess. I think North America lost $2 billion last year. He's got to cut cost as fast as possible. What's the fastest way to do that? Get rid of people, close down programs, delay programs. That's exactly what I think you're seeing here. Because just in the last week or so, GM came out and bragged how many people are getting Super Cruise and actually using and signing up when the free period. And Ford came out and bragging about how many people are using Blue Cruise, and they now have 1 million vehicles on the road with Blue Cruise. And then
but that's level 2.
It's
level 2 plus.
Yeah,
but right. I have driven Stellantis' system with level 2 plus. They don't advertise it. They don't push it like GM or Ford, and it's pretty good. It's on, I believe, some of the Ram pickups, some of the newer ones, and maybe the Grand Cherokee. It's not on a lot of vehicles, but their system is really comparable to Blue Cruise. I think Super Cruise is on a level of its own. And, people I've talked to who are experts in the field, like Samabul Samad at Telemetry, who study these things, feel it's just as strong. So, in terms of level 2, they've got a pretty good system.
Yeah. So level 3, as you guys know, once you declare that it's a level 3 system, you run into a buzzsaw of more regulation. So nobody wants to call their system level 3. I think you could arguably say that Blue Cruise and Super Cruise are, they call it.
Doesn't level 3 mean that there are periods where you can just not pay attention?
Eyes off
the road.
So it's eyes off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Eyes off.
Eyes off, hands
off. That is like a big hurdle to clear.
You're reading the newspaper. Well,
and
but nobody reads newspapers anymore. So
in the
you
US,
listen to the radio.
Texting.
The only legal place for eyes off, I think, is Nevada. Is it California too? it's not a 50 state.
Yeah.
It's like a 1 or 2 state option. So if you're looking at that and thinking, man, I got to cut costs and I can't even deploy this legally except in 1 or 2 states, forget about it. Close the program down.
Yes, that's
So he
where it
didn't
makes
get the
sense.
memo then about this being the year of the autonomy.
No,
That's
he
what
did.
no, I
He
think he
didn't.
didn't. I don't think he got
But
that.
I still stick by my guns. This is
Okay.
the year.
This
of
is the year of autonomy. Did
Didn't
you know
say
that,
that for
Jeff?
2010?
No, I was talking more like 1987.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
when I really got into this stuff. So, Gary, I got a question for you. We knew this was coming. Now the war has started. The Honda dealers in California are suing Honda, Sony, Afila
Oh, for direct
for them trying to do direct sales. What's going to happen?
If this were another period in time, I would say that the dealers will win. I'm not so sure anymore.
Wow.
I think that there would be sufficient examples of direct-to-consumer sales that are happening by other vehicle manufacturers that precedent has been set. Therefore, it's not going to be that big a problem. And if the Afila vehicle is identified as being a brand unto itself and not what Acura is to Honda, right? And Sony doesn't have any cars. So this is an entirely different thing. So I think that the Sony Honda people are going to win. What do you think?
Well, let's ask Jeff first.
Could have, I don't know with that much depth, but could this be a shot across the bow? Just essentially saying to Honda, look, we've got our eyes on you. We're going to draw a line in the sand right here, so we don't have to draw a line in the sand further back if you're at some point deciding you might want to sell a more mass market vehicle direct to customers. So we will just say right now, we'll put it on record right now, this is something we don't want to do.
Yeah, I would say this is the third shot. So they sent a letter to Honda saying, look, you don't want to do it. Then they filed a cease and desist order. Now they have filed a lawsuit. So that's why I say the war has started. Now it's in the courts. And I think...
What does Honda get out of this? It's a small, very small niche vehicle.
Correct.
So what do they get out of it?
Well, what they would say is that it's a lot cheaper to sell a car directly than sell it through a dealer franchise network.
I wonder to what extent this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, and that is once upon a time, everyone thought that EVs were going to be selling like mad. And so what was it, 3 CESs ago when Honda and Sony came out and made this announcement that they're going to make this wonderful car that'll have all of this Sony infotainment and screen content, and you've got the engineering prowess of Honda. How can it fail, right? And now they're probably, to your point, so it's going to be an expensive car that's going to be very limited volume, and you'll probably see, I don't know, 3 or 4 of them on Santa Monica and call it good.
Well, I think, if I were Honda, and they're probably already doing it, I'd call Volkswagen and say, hey, what are you guys doing? What's your strategy? Because we want to sell our Scouts direct. And I would...
Are they being sued as well? Scout?
I don't know if that lawsuit has been filed yet. It will. And so to answer you asked me, what do I think is going to happen? It's going to depend on how much stick-to-itness the car companies have, because it's going to trial. If they lose, will they appeal it to the Circuit Court of Appeals? If they lose there, will they appeal it to the Supreme Court? So it's just a matter of how deep are they going to reach into their pockets to pay these legal fees.
Okay, but this would be the Supreme Court of California.
Well, yeah, but I believe this is ultimately going to the U.S. Supreme Court.
I don't think it'll ever get there.
VW has lawsuits against it in Florida and California.
Okay, so Sean's telling us that California and what was the other one? Florida dealers have sued Volkswagen. And look, they're going to face lawsuits in every one of the 50 states. Because franchise laws there's no national one. Yeah. Every state has a different set of franchise laws. And those dealers in those states will sue those companies. Their dealer organizations will. Far better that you take this one and keep appealing it up until you get either you win or you lose.
So the question though becomes, okay, if as we suspect, car sales are going to go down, right? This basically means that dealers will make less money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a dealer making less money, do you necessarily want your trade association to be spending a whole lot of money against a corporation, I don't know, the size of Sony, which is humongous?
Oh yeah, no, the dealers will take this to the mat. They see this as an existential threat. They will spend the money. And remember, the NADA, the National Auto Dealers Association, I believe is the most powerful lobby in Washington.
Okay, but do you think that, that is it going to be the new automakers that will go with the direct model, or will existing automakers go with the direct model? And we saw that Ford tried it in Utah, and they said, nah, screw this. This ain't working out so well.
Look, franchise laws are pretty clear. If you're a car company and you've used dealers, you have to use dealers. You can't go and start selling cars on your own and compete against your own dealers. That's against the law. The real question is, if I come out with an all-new company that's never used dealerships, can I go and do that? Well, that's what Tesla came and ran into. And state dealership associations, all 50 states, put up roadblocks. There are still states that ban Tesla from selling cars. There are other states like here where we live in Michigan that very much limits how many outlets and service stores it can have. And so, I mean, Tesla is still kind of fighting with one arm tied behind its back when it comes to selling vehicles. So that's where it's going to be. Can an all-new company have carte blanche to sell cars as it wants? And then the question is going to be, is Scout really independent of Volkswagen? Is Afeela really independent of Honda? And so when you ask me what's going to happen, I don't know. My own personal opinion is, of course, they should let them do this. I mean, come on. Why should there be a law that says you can only buy cars from franchise dealers? Like I like to say, that's like saying you can only buy hamburgers from a franchised fast food restaurant.
See, it almost seems to me that in the case of Scout, I mean, so Scout is a subsidiary of Volkswagen Group, right? So I mean, it's clearly identified. But if you look at Afeela, is it a wholly owned subsidiary of Honda, or does it let's say Sony owns 51%. So then it would be owned by Sony, which has never sold cars.
Right.
So if it's a joint venture, like a 50-50 right now, I'd be selling a 1%.
A lot of people are going to get rich on this, and most of them are lawyers.
No, all of them are lawyers.
Yes.
That's right. So we're getting down towards the end here. You got a burning one? I got one of mine.
All right, good.
Yeah. So Cadillac announced its Formula One drivers this week. Valtteri Bottas from Finland, Sergio Perez from Mexico. There's been a little bit of buzz and out on the web there that, hey, they didn't pick an American driver. How can this American brand not have an American driver?
Because it's a standard of the world.
Yeah. Right. An American standard for the world. Any thoughts?
I don't know enough about the drive teams or the drivers in Formula One to have a thought, but I think of it as an international event. So I think Cadillac is trying to show the world it's a global brand, and it's not just depending on having to have an American. If the best drivers are somebody else, they'll choose them.
Yeah, they're not going to have an American engine.
No, that's right. They're starting with Ferrari. So for the first 2-3 years, a couple of years, they'll run Ferrari engines, and then Cadillac's own engine will.
Is Brad Pitt available?
he retired.
Oh, that's right.
So here's my question to you guys. So what will success look like for Cadillac in Formula One in its first year?
I think it'll do rather well, because when you look at new teams coming into racing, especially Formula One, they've been building these teams for several years. The Cadillac team's been building for 3 years now. 3 years concentrating on that first race and that first season. They've probably planned out everything to the absolute minutia of, where the transporter trucks go, where the hotels are going to be for the crews that go there, where the flights are going to, they plan out everything. I'm sure they've run multiple simulations of their car running on every single racetrack. So the point is, they hit the season next year with 3 years of preparation just for that season. Meanwhile, everybody who's running in Formula One right now has had to concentrate on this season. Now, probably, mid-year, just recently, they said, okay, enough concentrating on 2025. Now let's move to 2026. So Cadillac's going to hit the ground running with 3 years of preparation. Most everybody else is going to hit their ground running with about 6 months or so of preparation. So there's no way that Cadillac will win. I doubt very much it will even hit the podium for second or third. But
throughout the entire season or just the first race?
Throughout the season.
So you don't think it'll have a podium?
Probably not.
Okay, so will Mary Barra sustain the spending for that?
Good question. But I mean, they want to be known as a global brand. So this puts them with all the other global players. So, okay, they don't hit the podium, but at least they don't embarrass themselves. That's a victory.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you on that, Jeff. And I think that will be success. We didn't suck. We didn't fall flat on our face. And
so millions and millions and millions of dollars. Okay, billions of dollars.
I'm sure GM's commitment to Formula One is at least $1 billion bill.
So just not sucking will be sufficient.
Just not sucking for the first 3 years. It's like saying, let's go start an NFL football team. Let's get all good players in it. How long do you think it's going to take to build up to be a winning organization? It's going to take you at least 3 years to get there. And
or in Detroit.
Come on, that was just like hanging curveball over the plate.
Yeah. So, I mean, the reality is, look, you're going up against teams like McLaren, Ferrari, Red Bull. I mean,
Red Bull was really good out of the box.
I don't recall how that all, but remember they were buying, they bought an existing team, renamed it. And I'm not trying to make excuses or anything like that, but I mean, look at the Haas team, other American team in Formula One. It surprised a lot of people its first year. And then they always have what they call the sophomore year. Every team falls flat on its face the second year because it hasn't had 3 years of preparation to get to that point. So, if Cadillac doesn't suck for the first 3 years, people are going to go, oh, this is good. And if GM doesn't pull the plug, if it sticks to it, Cadillac could rise again to be a standard of the world.
Look at it this way. It's still less money than what they spent on Cruise.
That's true. Because I was going to say they maybe didn't get the manual. This is the year of autonomy.
Okay. In fact, maybe that's why Cruise got axed.
Yeah.
They had to pay for the Formula One after.
Yeah, now that
there you go.
is something.
Right. So, okay.
Let's wrap it
up. Jeff, Gilbert, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Always good to see you.
Gary, you're going to be gone for the next 2 weeks.
Yep.
You have a terrific vacation.
Count those EVs when you're in Europe.
I will.
Okay.
All right.
And we invite all of you back next week.
AutoLine After Hours is brought to you by